Who responded? The Wolves tonight. For the first time in 20 years, they're off to the conference semifinals because Phoenix, for the fourth time in 4 games, had no response. Swept out, many questions coming for the Suns, but let's really lay into what Minnesota was able to do tonight. Kevin Durant was great. Devin Booker was even better. Bradley Beal was sort of a no-show. I mean, look at that shot from Booker. Suns fighting for their season, literally and figuratively, actually took a 5-point lead into the half. Those two were absolutely terrific, as was Anthony Edwards, who told Scott Van Pelt on his show the other night after Game 3, I want to kill everything in front of me. He's that aggressive. Karl Anthony Towns came back late in the regular season off the injury. He has been magical. What a great 1-2 punch. As I mentioned, one time the Wolves have made the Western Conference Finals. It was 20 years ago, 20th anniversary of their best team. They've never made it to the NBA Finals. They're up 1. Edwards again, look at the range, and just scratching the surface. And then showing the whole repertoire. You saw the deep 3, now backing in, turnaround 2. The Wolves didn't beat the Suns in the regular season, but when it counted the most, the Suns couldn't beat them in the postseason. But give Royce O'Neal credit, they didn't go away, tying it at 107. But back comes Edwards, who was unstoppable. Back and forth game, Wolves back up 3. Jaden McDaniels, what a player he has been. The depth that he gives them. Wolves up 4. And now, just about 2:21 to go, Wolves lead by 2. Phil, this set the studio ablaze tonight. Anthony Edwards throwing it down, the figurative exclamation point, though the sentence is not over yet. It's about to be. Wild play here. Edwards fouled on the sideline by Bradley Beal. Beal fouls out. Edwards down holding his leg. Edwards collides with Beal as he's fouled, and that's got to be an incredibly scary sight. If you're the Wolves, looks like the sneaker just hit on sneaker. Good news, he would stay in the game, make both free throws. You thought that was a scary injury situation? Watch this. Mike Conley is fouled by the Wolves bench near there, and the Wolves head coach Chris Finch, he goes down. Finch is 54 years old, had no chance to get out of the way. They tried to break his fall. He was then helped off the floor. We'll wait to see what his condition is. We're going to go full postgame here in a second. The guy was 3rd place for Coach of the Year. Here comes another exclamation point. Wolves win, sweep. The questions for Phoenix are going to be plenty. We'll get to that in a second. But let's celebrate what Minnesota was able to do. The first sweep in franchise history in their 14th ever playoff series. They entered the postseason as one of 3 teams never to break out the brooms. They have now done it. Again, off to the conference semis. Just the 2nd season in which the Wolves won a playoff series. Again, back in 04, reached the conference finals. Otherwise, they've been one and done. 20th anniversary of that great Minnesota team. Some say the best one yet. Maybe this one will be different. And for Phoenix, short stay despite the new big 3. This is going to be a year and off-season full of questions about how this team is going to come back constituted. Training camp in October.
Well, with an immediate answer to both of those questions we'll pose, ESPN senior NBA reporter Brian Windhorst joins us fresh off this Wolves sweep of the Suns. Brian, Anthony Edwards goes for 49-6, looking the part of #1 overall pick. What impressed you most about what he did both tonight and in this series?
This was Anthony Edwards' first ever closeout game opportunity. And look at the performance that he put forth in this game. This is the giant headline. The way he closed this game, 6 of 7 in the 4th quarter, 3-point range, drive into the basket. The Suns went small because they were desperate to try to figure out how to deal with the Wolves. Ant went to the basket and just crushed it, rolled his ankle in the process and just played through it like we've seen him do time and time again. This was an arrival for Ant Edwards. This is the first of what could be a long run of his dominant performances in clutch moments in the postseason. Very melancholy, Phil, because of this crazy situation with Chris Finch, where he looks like he suffered a severe right knee injury in the midst of the greatest moment in the franchise's history in 20 years. But while everybody breaks down what happened in this game and what happens with the Suns going forward, the first thing you should do is realize the superstar that is emerging with Ant Edwards, and we saw an example of it tonight.
We get at least another series with Anthony Edwards and the T-Wolves as they advance to face the winner of Lakers and Nuggets. Wendy, for the Phoenix side, I mean, there's no other way to look at this season but a failure. You don't put together this big three to win 0 playoff games. How do they fix this?
Bottom line, they just don't have enough. In this game, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker combined for 82 points, just 34 from the rest of the Suns. Bradley Beal had a miserable game, one of the worst games he's ever played in his career. Fouls out with 9 points. But it's not just about Bradley Beal. This team had the worst scoring bench of any team in the league this season because they've gutted their roster to get and pay for these 3 players in an environment where it's very hard to team build in the new CBA, and they have a very, very limited set of options on what to do with this roster. They are basically determined to have these 3 guys work, and if they don't work, there's nothing much they can do. And I know that the common default will be, well, they didn't get to play much together. But they actually did, because this is the most games Durant's played since 2019. It's the most games Booker's played in several seasons. It's the most games that Beal's played in 3 seasons. These are players who have injury histories. This was actually a healthy year for them. And so they're in a very, very difficult position. They came in with an excellent draw. They were 3-0 against the Timberwolves. There was no reason why they shouldn't have been more competitive in this series. They got beat by a stronger, deeper, more well-rounded team, and that's just the truth. And that is a big lesson for everybody to take away from this game, how good the Wolves were and how much of a problem the Suns have now and going forward.
Immediate reaction and analysis from Brian Windhorst. Wendy, thank you.
Defeating the Suns 122-116. Anthony Edwards having yet another monster outing, 40 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Karl Anthony Towns adding in 28. But no, gotta look at what Devin Booker was able to do. It just wasn't quite enough, putting up 49, 5, and 6. KD with 33. But it's the T-Wolves who bested the Suns in Game 4. Suns heading home. T-Wolves moving on. And we are now joined by CBS Sports NBA insider and host of the Beyond the Arc podcast, Bill Ryder, following Sunday's slate, the final game of Sunday's slate in the NBA. But we got to begin things with what transpired out in Phoenix. The Timberwolves sending the Suns home on their own court, sweeping the series. Suns, no match for the Wolves. They opened up this series as slight favorites to win, but it's been all Minnesota. And Sunday was the closest of the matchups they had with the T-Wolves. All of their games winning by an average of 12, this one being by 6. Was this series more so about the Suns not being able to put it all together, or was it just the Wolves being the better team?
Yes. All right, so I'll pick one. I mean, you're right. It's a shocker because not only were the Suns slightly favored, they had the guys with experience in the postseason. Obviously, Kevin Durant's won a couple championships, and Devin Booker has played in one. And the Suns had beaten the Timberwolves in every regular season game. And it was the T-Wolves who looked like the juggernaut. I think for me, the main takeaway, Kiana, is the fact that this Minnesota team has a legitimate superstar right now in this moment, not later. Anthony Edwards, who cares about his age, who cares about his lack of postseason experience compared to his contemporaries. He's the real deal. And there's going to be a question in the future, maybe now, about how many seasons in this career he's going to be the best player in the NBA. That defense is legitimate. Gobert has been outstanding. This is an incredible Timberwolves team. Assuming the Nuggets win against the Lakers at some point, they're up 3-1 in that series. That's going to be an amazing series. It is time to stop, because I was doing it the whole time, doubting this Timberwolves squad. The main takeaway of what we just saw, what they just completed, is they're the real deal.
Yeah, Game 2, 38 points for Edwards. Game 3, 43. Game 4, 41. I mean, he's been outstanding, not just this season or postseason, but also during the season. But I want to look at the bigger picture, talent-wise, not necessarily matchup-wise, Bill. How far do you think this T-Wolves team can go based on just how they've been able to handle this series, what you've seen out of this series with the Suns? Not talking about a matchup, but overall, do they have that talent to make it far?
Well, I just lost $1,000 dinner bet to my co-host on Beyond the Arc, John Gonzalez. So, because I didn't believe in the Timberwolves. So the right answer is that the next round should be the end of the journey this time around, because they're playing the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, I think, are the best team in the NBA. They're certainly the best team in the Western Conference. They are, of course, the defending champions, and Nikola Jokic is the best player on earth. But what we just saw against the Suns for the T-Wolves, and from Anthony Edwards in particular, begs at least the possibility that Minnesota can make a series of this. That Denver's got to beat the Lakers one more time and get to that second round. We presume that'll happen. No team has ever come back from or blown a 3-0 series lead, which is where Denver was before the Lakers were able to get one at the end of their homestand, their 2-game homestand in LA. But assuming that Denver plays Minnesota, I mean, I'll give Minnesota a fighting chance. I at least want to see that series because the likely answer to your question is